Hello, I am the Reverend Dr. Jerry P. Kula, Vice President of the School of Graduate and Professional Studies at the United Methodist University. In the context of the United Methodist Church in Liberia, I am also the chairperson for the Committee on Investigation of the Liberia Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. That means every issues that come up in a church that require investigation, my committee, the committee I chair, provides leadership over that. I'm a former district superintendent of the Monrovia district, a former dean for the Bangla School of Theology, a former dean of the Graduate School of Theology, and a former director of evangelism and missions of the Liberia Annual Conference, the United Methodist Church. I'm also a former pastor of the Esther and Namwe United Methodist Church, an associate pastor. I come to you, my dear brothers and sisters, this evening to share with you on issues regarding the crisis in the United Methodist Church in Liberia. Since the end of our general conference, I have been very silent and quiet, but I have been praying. A couple of weeks ago, I even mobilized prayer across the nation for the Liberia Annual Conference. There were many districts of the Liberia Annual Conference that gathered to pray. We've been praying, and many things have been happening behind the scene. We were very careful not to bring the church and its issues into the public glare. And so we've been very quiet and praying and seeking God's direction. We've done so for some time now. And at this point, we feel it's very important for the people called United Methodists to understand what is happening. Because while we have been quiet, a lot of things have been happening to the detriment of the church that have the propensity to cause unnecessary division in the church. But because some of us have been contending for the faith, not only in Liberia, but across the continent of Africa, and even at the global gathering of United Methodists, we are constrained to come out and provide you some information so that you will use the information to pray for the United Methodist Church in Liberia so that we will not suffer disintegration because the situation is nearing a massive division. And we want to solicit your prayer, but it's also important for you to understand what is happening. And that's the reason why I'm breaking silence to be able to share with you. I want you to also know that I am the chair or the head of delegation of the Liberia Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church to the recent general conference that took place in Charlotte, North Carolina from the 23rd of April to the 3rd of May. Since we went to that conference and came back, there has been lots of expectations on the part of United Methodists across Liberia. But unfortunately, those expectations have not been met because our current resident bishop, the Bishop Samuel Jerome Choir Jr., have had a different perception, a different view, a different approach, contrary to the general understanding and approach of the majority of the church. When I speak about the majority of the church, I'm talking about the 20 districts and 2 circuits that make up the Liberia Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. And so this is why I am now speaking out. What are the things that have been happening that are detrimental to the peace and stability of the church? We returned from the general conference. And prior to going to the general conference, we have had our 191st annual section that was heard in Buchanan, Grand-Bassa County from the 13th of February to the 18th of February 2024. At that conference, lots of issues came up, including the Way Forward Committee, and that's the Way Forward Committee report that was presented and discussed. And it had to do with all of the vices that are taking place in the worldwide UMC that makes the church spiritually unhealthy. And so the Liberia Annual Conference did a survey, and the survey result was reported. And the conference was supposed to vote on the result. But our resident bishop, Bishop Samuel Jerome Choir, pleaded with the conference and asked us to hold on the vote until the delegate goes to the general conference and return. When the delegate returns, based upon what happened at the general conference, plus the report from the Way Forward Committee, we will look at everything and then take a vote at a special section. Following the end of the annual conference, the bishop and his cabinet met on the 22nd of February and decided on when the special call session will happen when the team returns from the general conference. And they decided on the 16th and 17th of July 2024 for the special call session. We went to the general conference, and many things happened there that you will receive the report about. But since we came, the bishop has refused to call the special section of the annual conference. And everyone has been waiting and asking, Bishop, when will you call the section? And the bishop has vehemently said he would not call the section. And he had not given explicit information to the annual conference on why he's not calling the special section that was agreed upon. According to the bishop, it is at his discretion to call the special section. According to our book of discipline, the bishop has the discretionary power to call a special section from the end of the annual conference to when the next annual conference will happen. Between that time, if anything comes up, the bishop has the right to decide that he wants to call a special session along with his cabinet. However, this instance is different. We had an issue on hand to vote on. And besides that, we're going to a general conference whose delegates were predominantly liberal and progressive. And we knew that many things will happen there that are contrary to what we have always stood for, the evangelical position we have always stood for. And so we told the bishop we needed to take some decision. In fact, we had a mandate from the conference to go to the general conference. We went with that mandate that as we go to the general conference, we should vote against any attempt to legalize same-sex marriage. We should vote against any attempt to remove from the book of discipline the statement that says homosexuality is incompatible with Christian living. We should also vote against any attempt to change the definition of marriage. We went to the general conference, and the predominantly progressive and liberal delegates voted into law all of these practices. And since we came back, we needed to have a special call session to decide the position of the Liberia Annual Conference. And the bishop has refused. Now, in the Liberia Annual Conference, we have the laity, but we also have the clergy. And the clergy is headed by the Board of Dean Ministry. And the Board of Dean Ministry members are elected. The head is elected to lead. And everyone is elected for 4 years. We call that quadrennium. Because of the COVID, we have not had general conference. So there was the first general conference. So at our next annual conference in February, that is when new officers will be elected. But here, what has happened since we came? When the bishop refused to call the special session, the Board of the Ministry chairperson went to him along with the team of the members of the Board of the Ministry and pleaded with the bishop to listen to the church and call a special section. The bishop got angry and he went ahead and started carrying out illegal suspension. As I speak to you right now, the bishop went ahead and sacked the head of the board of the ministry, the board that he's even amenable to, he sacked the head and he dismissed members of the board of the ministry. And then he went and created his own, appointed his own board of the ministry and put on clergy members there who are in agreement with him that he should not call a special section. So now in the conference, we have illegal suspension going on. Illegal suspension of elected conference officials who disagree with the bishop, especially on his concept of regionalization. I will talk about that some other time. So he's suspending people. In fact, the secretary of the conference, he suspended him from the United Methodist University. The chairperson of the board, the ministry, did not only sack him from the board and change the board, he also suspended him from the graduate school where he had been serving as dean of the school of the graduate school of theology. Another thing the bishop has done is disallowing United Methodists from using the UMC compound for open worship. We mobilize everyone to gather for us to pray that God will bring peace and sanity to the United Methodist Church in Liberia, since we are one of the founding members of Christianity on the soil of Liberia. The bishop closed the gate and said no one should come to pray. And those who are gathering to pray in the Grand Bassa district, he instructed the district superintendent to close the church gate that the people should not go in to pray. So we don't know what's going on with our bishop. We think it is now time to inform the people called United Methodists so that we can all engage the process, because some folks, all right, some influence is upon our bishop that is contradicting everything our bishop has stood for, the evangelical stance our bishop has stood for. A third thing that the bishop is doing is that he's suppressing the voice of the United Methodists by refusing to call a special section of the conference that we all agree upon. Another thing the bishop is doing is he's threatening pastors and lay people with dismissal or suspension who disagree with his regionalization plan for the church. Okay, an agenda that promotes same-sex marriage and other practices inconsistent with scripture. I will give you more detail later. Okay, the bishop is also asking members to leave the UMC who disagree with his agenda. That's a statement he made when he went to Ganta Nema Kante, and members of the church got so angry and they started attacking him and being very disobedient to him. We felt very sorry that our bishop had to be humiliated that way, but that's the message he took to the people, that you came to the church as an individual, you can live as an individual. So if you don't agree with same-sex marriage, you don't agree with regionalization, you can leave the church. The people said, no, you did not help us to build our church. How can you ask us to leave? And they became very angry, and to some extent, they became violent. Another thing the bishop is doing is disallowing the graduate school of the United Methodist University from using the United Methodist radio station. This radio station was built before the bishop was elected to office. So ELUM 98.7 is now promoting propaganda for the bishop. The bishop now has a jingle going on where he's promoting regionalization. We had 1 hour on Friday to do discipleship. I was leading that, and I do discipleship and promote the graduate school. But the bishop has asked the manager to cut off the program. I wrote the bishop and asked the bishop, why are you doing it? And the bishop refused to respond to me. We spoke to the Liberia Council of Churches to intervene. They intervened and the bishop refused to listen to them. We spoke to the former bishops of the Liberia Annual Conference in the United Methodist Church. Bishop Arthur Flomo Kula, who is here in Liberia, and Bishop John G. Innes. They all spoke to the bishop and invited John G. Innes. Even wrote the bishop appealing to the bishop. The bishop refused. So in my capacity as chairperson of the Committee on Investigation and as head of the delegation of the Liberia Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church, I have been constrained to come out and tell all United Methodists, this is what is happening, and this is the main reason that we have the crisis. We went to the General Conference and many things were done there that's not right, and the bishop is asking us to endorse them, even though he claims that we will not practice them. So he said, we are against same-sex marriage, but we will promote regionalization. I will tell you more about regionalization in my next presentation. Please watch out for my next presentation. But let me conclude with this. Some of us have been walking with Jesus for more than 47 years. I gave my life to Jesus in 1977. I've been walking with Jesus, falling and rising over the years. My bishop or no institution will make me turn my back on the Bible, which is my primary authority for faith and practice. The Bible is the primary authority, faith and practice for all United Methodists. For an institution called United Methodists, worldwide, that had now become a gay denomination. I will speak to more of this later, but this is to share with you, encourage you to pray so that God will intervene. Watch out for my next episode on the future of the United Methodist Church in Liberia. Thank you.